In what has to be a great display of my social skills, I'm not sure if I ever said my name in the first part of the welcome lecture. My name is Dr. Kelly, and I will be your instructor during the course of this semester. What is the best way to seek help for me? Well, one of the big keys to success in this course is getting me to help you when you need it. Let me start by saying I don't answer my phone. I hate phone communication. If you're taking this course over the summer or during the fall semester, there's a good chance I won't even be in my office to answer it. If you leave me a voicemail message on the phone, it may be over a month before I get back to you. So don't contact me via phone. What you should do to contact me is use the question and help message board. I check this message board at least once a day, Monday through Friday. If you go to your Blackboard shell, you'll see this button right here labeled Questions and Help. Click it, and it takes you to a message board. This message board does a couple things that I think are real important in terms of questions and answers. First, it breaks the feeling of isolation. One of the things that's dangerous in an online class or a hybrid class is that if you're struggling with something or have a question over something, you may think you're the only one, and you may get discouraged. By asking the question via a message board, then everybody else can see that question. Sometimes people will jump in on your thread and say, oh, I had that question too. But even if people don't jump in on your thread and say, oh, I had that question too, you see that other people are posting questions, right? So it breaks that feeling of isolation. So I think that's really psychologically important. Another thing that's great is it holds me accountable. How many instructors actually give you a tool to hold the instructor accountable? I promised I would check this message board once a day, Monday through Friday. If you notice, there is a time and date stamp made whenever a post is made. Therefore, when you ask a question, when you create a thread and ask a question, the date and time you ask that question is recorded. When I respond to that question, the date and time I respond to the question is recorded. Therefore, if I'm not doing my job and answering your questions the next day, Monday through Friday, then you have documentable proof, right? You can say, hey, look at the message board. This bozo isn't answering his questions. I am giving you a tool to hold me accountable. How awesome is that? I mean, how many other people, professors out there, give you a documentable way of grading them? Well, I've done so with this question to help message board. Also, it's a great organizational tool. It helps me see what you guys are having questions about. Creates that dialogue atmosphere for us. One thing that's important, though, is that you ask me good questions. All right, to ask a question, click Create Thread. When you create a thread, use a subject, and use a subject that will let me instantly know what you're talking about and will let your classmates know what you're talking about. Because good students are going to check this question and help message board every day to see what their classmates are asking about and to see my answers to their classmates, right? If you were taking a traditional format class and somebody raised your hand, you'd get to listen to the question and answer. That's another purpose of this question and help message board. Because, I mean, how many times do you take a class and somebody asks a question and you say, man, I wish I'd asked that question. I wish I'd thought of that question, right? That happened to me all the time when I was taking classes. And as a professor, the student asks me a question and I say, man, that's a good question. Why didn't I think of explaining that in my lecture? So asking these questions are really important. Give a subject that will let other people know what your question is about. For example, aspirin pre-lab. Now, a good question is going to be specific. A good question is very specific. For example, in the pre-lab lecture, when I worked in example, when I worked it, I got 43.5 grams instead of 42 grams. This good question is very specific. It's focusing on the single example. The student's telling me their wrong answer. So not only am I able to go into more detail about how I worked the problem, but this isn't my first rodeo, so I've seen a lot of the problems or mistakes that students make. So by the student telling me their wrong answer, I'm actually able to take a guess a lot of the times. Not always, but 40% of the time, I can actually guess at what the student did wrong. So they've given me a specific question to which I can give a specific answer. A bad version of the same question would be, I don't understand the calculations. You don't understand what calculations? So the pre-lab lecture was full of them, right? See the difference between a good question and a bad question? The more specific the question, the better your answer. Right? Matter of fact, if you asked too broad a question, for example, if you said, I don't understand the calculations for the aspirin lab, I'm going to fire back a response, be specific. Ask a specific question. I know there's an art form to it, and I know you're used to having people read your mind, but that's not possible because I can't even see your face when you're asking me the question. And I can't see the sheet of paper you have in front of you. So be specific when asking me a question. Another thing that this question help message board should be used for is whenever you're sending me an email, make sure you post a message saying you sent me that email. Every once in a while, for some reason, people want to discuss something that they're embarrassed about or unnecessarily give me private details. But if you want to communicate with me privately, simply say, you don't even have to write a long message, just say email. Right? You don't even have to write a message, just email. That does a couple things. It tells me to look for your email. That way I can check my junk email box. And it puts me on the clock, and it helps me organize the work, right? What I do every day is the first thing I do every day is I go through these question help message boards. And I answer the first messages posted, in other words, the messages that have been waiting to be answered the longest. So when you say that sent email, your email is actually put into that order in which I'm doing things. Otherwise, if you don't post that, then your email gets answered last thing. Also, that email lets me know what class you're in. You won't believe the number of emails that get sent to me where the student forgets to tell me what class they're in, or they just tell me they're in my chemistry class. Well, guess what? I only teach chemistry. All my classes are chemistry. Also, in case your email gets lost, and about 10% of emails that get sent to me for some reason disappear. Rather than you sitting there cursing me for an email that I never got and I'm unaware that you're cursing me, if the email doesn't reach me, it lets me respond to your post and say, hey, I didn't get your email, you need to resend it. So it's very effective. Make sure you post a message saying you sent me an email whenever you send me one. Make use of this question and help message board. I check it at least once a day, Monday through Friday. It is the best way of contacting me. It is a great tool. Those of you who use it will learn to love it because you'll wind up jumping on other people's questions in terms of, oh, I had that question too, or yeah, I have that, or I have that question. I also had this one. Or you'll post a question and somebody else will say, well, I know the answer to that, but I know how to do part A of that, but I got lost on part B. Right? So it creates that class feel. It really, really does. It helps a lot. One thing that I find funny is on the days you actually show to do the face-to-face labs, it's amazing how, having never met, a lot of times people who have responded to each other's posts find each other as lab partners. So somebody has a great sociological PhD experiment there, I'm sure. But use that question and help message board there whenever you need to contact me or ask me a question. Beep.